Assalamu alaikum everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali kulli wa sahbi kulli ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Sabahul khair. Good morning. Inshallah you had a nice sleep and a pleasant breakfast, right? Yeah. Ready for another journey, inshallah, today. So today we, are going to leave, inshallah, 2 p.m. To Yalova. So, and we have a giant bus which can carry 55 people. So we're going to all go together. And inshallah, we'll try to see if you have any suggestion, feel free to make suggestion. We'll try to see how we can, in a way, make a journey to be a very pleasant one. So there's a mic system and everything in the bus. So anyone who has a good voice or can make a good joke, come to us, inshallah. Okay. Okay. So we'll try to really have, inshallah, good trip, inshallah, together. Okay, and we will go to Thermal first. That is a very good place to do harfi reflection there. So we'll give you assignments and put you there and see what you get it at the end. It's like a kind of the homework, okay? And then after that we'll go to our retreat center, and inshallah we will spend some time there. We'll be back. We'll be leaving from Yalova maybe just after praying Maghrib, and then we'll come back, inshallah, after that. Okay. So today we're going to talk about Harfi and Ismi perspective. And I think you already heard those concepts. I kind of remember there were some questions on that. But we're going to go over this concept in depth. Okay. So those are very, important questions and subjects, because Nursi, when he was 40 years old, he reflects on his life. He says, in 40 years of my life, 30 years of my learning, and his learning was fully dedicated to the self-learning, to explore and understanding, to the level when he was fighting during the World War I against Russian, he was still not giving up the learning and writing and publishing the tafsir of Isharatul Ijaz and Surah Al-Baqarah. It was written when he was literally fighting with the enemies there. So that he was that level of scholar. He will never make anything as an excuse for learning and reflecting. But despite that, he said, like, if you want me to tell you what I have learned, he says, I can tell you all in just 4 words. He says, what I learned in 40 years of my life, 30 years of my learning, is 4 words and 4 sentences or 4 statements. We're going to reflect on the 4 words alone. And actually, Ismi and Harfi is the 2 of the 4 even. We're not going to really focus on the 4 because, it's going to take time. So now, what is the significance of those words? Essentially, when you really, when we started this project, and try to see, what is the problem. And I think, of course, what attracted our attention first, like those from Islamic world, like Sayyid Hussein Nasr and Al-Altas, they basically did excellent job in diagnosing the problem particularly. Though practical solution could be, Nasr, you don't really see that much. But Al-Altas did offer some practical solution, and in Malaysia they have been implementing to a certain level. So, but after studying them, then I actually revisited Nursi, and I realized that Nursi was talking about the same problem as Nasr and Al-Altas and some other great mind in the West were talking about. And I realized that basically Nursi was defining the problem for Ummah in particular and for humanity in general can be described in 2 words And the solution also can be actually subscribed or prescribed in 2 words. So it's it's interesting. So it's essentially, it's like, we'll say, no, 3, I think we can make it 3 words. And it's just 4 words, but you can use 3 or 4 to diagnose the problem. You can use 3 or 4 to actually prescribe the solution. That's what we're going to talk about it. But first, we're going to have a little brain exercise. In Kastamonu is a town in Turkey, a group of high school went to Nursi and complained about their teachers. And it says this is exact quote from the book, that he says that, tell us about our Creator, our teachers do not speak of God. And Nursi, in response, he's saying that I told them all the sciences you study continuously speak of God, make known the Creator, each with its own particular tongue. Do not listen to your teachers, listen to the sciences. Now, first, what was the complaint the student had? Second, what was really Nursi saying as a response to those students? What does it mean to say, don't listen to the teachers, but listen to the science that the teacher actually is going to teach you? What does it mean? How would you separate the teachers from what they teach? And if you're not going to listen to the teachers, how are you going to listen to the teaching of the teachers? What do you understand from this? Anyone have an idea? Because the reason I want to bring this one, I bet that most of Nursi readers, and I was one of them for a long time, got the statement wrong, and therefore they don't really have a major problem with science. And therefore, they don't have any projects to really come up with any solution as well. Because of this statement. If you ask most of them, they will tell you by heart. But I think it's very important. We need to see what he really meant in this. Anyone wants to tell us? Yes?
I think when I look at this, he says to look for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala possibly through the mu'jizat, through reflecting on what they're studying and linking it to the presence of Allah.
What was their question in your view? What was their complaint?
They want to hear more about God. They want to see God in the learning that they're doing. They want to see how...
What did they see as a problem with their schooling? What was the problem they see?
It's secular.
A secular?
It's secular. They're just teaching by looking at this. I mean, tell us about the Creator, which means that the sciences that are being taught at the school are very secular. It doesn't link anything to the Creator, and it may be even more secular to the point where they talk about evolution. They talk about secularism in an open way, and the kids probably felt that there's that piece of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's missing.
So
that's why they want us to learn.
So in other words, their complaint is not about atheism. It's not about the teachers denying God. Their complaint is just teaching science without mentioning God. Isn't that what we all do? Isn't that what everyone do in a science subject? See? So that is exactly what everywhere, how we teach science. So in this case, you just teach a pure science, no mentioning of God. And that was their complaint. So their complaint was science is separated from God, so we cannot see God in science at all. So that's what they say.
And I think
what was his answer? Yes.
Is look at the magnificence of Allah's creation in science, and this is Allah. You learn about Allah's qudra through the science that you see. This is what I understood from the
Good. Thank you, thank you. So I think we get an answer to our first question. Second question, remember, is how can you not listen to teachers but listen to the sciences? Because teachers are the one that basically conveying the science. He says, do not listen to teachers. But meanwhile, he says, do listen to science. But let's say if you're a science teacher, if you're a good science teacher, you're going to write your science textbook and you're going to teach that. And Nursi will say, no, don't listen to the teachers. But the science textbook is from that teacher. Isn't confusing? Yes.
Yeah, I think what was meant that you, as a student, you should listen to the facts, so the scientific facts. It's not the opinion of the teacher. So just take the facts of the facts of science out, and not listen to everything else that it's said about or not said about.
So you're saying that do not listen to the interpretation and ideology of teachers, and listen to the science. But isn't the science itself come with this ideology?
No, because there are science in science.
Okay.
And this is what it said, actually. Allah is revealing himself, reading the nature like a magnificent book. So it's actually the science of Allah are in the facts of science itself. And the fact that the teachers are leaving it out, just don't listen to that. Listen to the science of science speaking.
Good, very good. Sister Donna, can you give the mic to her?
I was just going to say...
Yeah, you can pass on the mic, please.
I think it just reminds me of step one of the model. So essentially it means they themselves, they hear the teacher, yes, there's the causal mechanisms, the facts, the science, which is what they're listening to, and they themselves need to go through that process of desecularizing it. Almost essentially like a step one of the model.
So they means whom?
That's what Sayyid Nursi is asking of them to do when he says, do not listen to your teacher.
Okay.
Just listen to, so desecularize.
So in other words, you're saying that he's telling the students, desecularize the knowledge provided to them, then gonna see the God inside that. Very, very, I think it's a good point. Very good point. So essentially, does Nursi have a problem with science? Does Nursi have a problem with modern science? Modern science, secular science.
Separate subject. And that was the first part. Tell us about your creator. Almost like the students could be complaining where they expect you to have subjects that are titled Aqidah or whatever, like so separate named subjects. Whereas Sayyid Nursi sees science as Ilm itself, all knowledge.
So in other words, basically, when he says do not listen to the teacher, he's saying do not listen to the secular science that come with ideology. When he says listen to the science, he adds a particular statement. He says each of them, they do not speak of God as is, but they speak of as it's presented now. But they speak of God with his own particular tongue. The question is, what is that particular tongue? Which means that you need to know that tongue, then you can understand it in this case. And that tongue, when you read the Nursi, is the Harfi perspective. So essentially, he's saying that the existing scientific knowledge is a secular, and you should reject it. Therefore, he says, do not listen to the teachers. But when he says that listen to the science, he did not mean that the science taught by these teachers. He means that if you gain a right perspective, and if you filter out the ideology, then you can see the sign of Allah and benefit from that. So that is what he says. But as I mentioned, it's really, most Nursi readers take this one as if Nursi has no problem with the science, as if science will take you to God. No, we did cover even the very first day, science with the secular ideology actually can take you away from God, not closer to God. So only if you remove the ideology and if you use the lens, the Tawheedi perspective, then Nursi will call it a Harfi perspective, then you can see that. Now when we look at Nursi life, Nursi was actually fascinated with science at very early age, to the level he began to memorize science books. He memorized 90 textbooks, or books, I think mostly were textbooks. And among them, there were a lot of science textbooks as well. And he will go and compete with different teachers of different subjects, and actually, you know, as a very young age, like he was 14, 15 at this age, and he will basically show that he really mastered those subjects. Because he says that he thought initially that scientific knowledge, it's like the stair with which that you can actually ascend to the heaven, ascend to the understanding of Allah, to ma'rifatullah. But later on, once he reflects on his life and he went deep into the Quran, he acknowledged that was a big mistake. He acknowledged that actually that secular scientific knowledge was like a garbage in this regard, not really helping him and actually harming him to make an advancement. There is one part, he has a self-reflection on his life. He explicitly states how this type of knowledge prevent him to really ascend to, again, to the ma'rifatullah. So essentially, it seems like at the age of 40, that's the time that, you know, if you read Immanuel Kant, you will say, you don't really get mature, or your mind will not really be in control until you reach the age of 40. And it's interesting, Nursi at the 40, it seems like he had a real transformation. So in that case, he realized when he had a self-reflection that the problem and the solution could be understood with only 4 words. So basically, it's first niyyah, then nazar. So niyyah and nazar is the common for both, in this case, solution and problem. And then come nazar could be in 2 ways, could be mana harfi, mana ismi, in 2 ways. So essentially, the concept he had, niyyah, nazar, mana ismi, and mana harfi. So mana ismi, mana harfi, again, is a word, it's difficult. We call it ismi perspective, harfi perspective, or ismi dimension, harfi dimension. We just call it ismi and harfi. But original, it's about mana, it's a meanings in this regard. The mana ismi, mana harfi. For Nursi, nothing is more important than intention, niyyah, because he always go deep down to niyyah. But the interesting part, Nursi puts niyyah at the essence of knowing as well. So in Nursi's understanding that knowing, niyyah has an importance for epistemology as well. So you learn what you intend to learn. Your intention is going to get you towards the knowledge that you want to know. So in this case, he says that we always need to look at the niyyah, because he used the phrase, he says that any deed, the soul of the deed is niyyah. Without niyyah, there is no deed, which means every deed has to start with niyyah. But then he says the soul of the niyyah is ikhlas. So in that case, it will always put ikhlas at the very center of that. So in this case, you look at it, what is, but when he uses ikhlas, he means the purity, sincerity. That in this case, you can have an ikhlas in a wrong way as well. You can sincerely aim to harm, and that you have ikhlas in an evil way. So it's basically, you know, ikhlas, you can take it, it's not just ikhlas, radha ilahi. Ikhlas is the sincerity, purity in any goal you have. So therefore, Nursi says that whatever you do, if you purely want them, that's really essential key for the starting. So nazar is essentially in Quran, when it says فَانْظُرْ إِلَىٰ آثَارِ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. So nazar in Quranic term is a reflective perspective. It's not looking, an ara or yara is different than nazar. Fanzur is to look with reflection, try to look and understand what is happening, thinking in this regard. So then in this case, he says that there could be 2 different nazar, ismi nazar and harfi nazar. So, and we're going to, again, through that, what ismi means, when harfi means, we're going to explain to that. So, again, there's the niyyah, to be the soul, we don't need everything is dead. Now, ismi and harfi was there before Nursi. Basically, it was in Arabic grammar. In Arabic grammar, there's ism and there's harf. And the harf, in this case, is basically a particle or preposition that, like, fi, ala, min, baina. So those is not ladder, actually, because harf, if you literally translate, you think is a ladder. It's not ladder. It's in this case a preposition which has no meaning by itself. It can only use to refer to something else. When saying, the laptop is fawq, that means the laptop is over that. So say taht means under that, but taht what? Fawq what? So it can't really, there has to be something else that is referred to that. In this regard, what he means that basically ismi is just a noun. So it's basically, it's the noun that ism, let's say when we say this is a laptop. That's the name of this object here. So it has, in this case, it directly refers to itself. Oh, this is a laptop. It refers to this. But when we say fawq, but we cannot say, we say have to fawq something. So in this case, that fawq can only be used referring to something else. And you just use fawq or you use taht, it has absolutely no meaning. So in this regard, harfi means it is something not pointing itself, like laptop point to itself, but fawq points to something beyond itself. That is what Nursi got from the grammar, and he says that like this, everything has two dimensions. And there are two ways to look at that. Two dimension means that everything has ismi dimension, means it just shows itself. So the tree is a tree. When you say the tree reveals itself and says, here's my shape, here's my color, here's my size. That is ismi dimension. But the tree also points to something else. That pointing to something else or revealing or being the sign, that's the harfi dimension. Which means the tree is not just a tree as in an object. The tree is a sign, signified something beyond itself. The tree is not just, let's say, a tree with certain function. The tree has a meaning. It points to this meaning. That's part of the meaning in the creation in relation to the creator. Nursi call it, this is a harfi dimension. So in other words, Nursi's idea here is that everything in the universe has a meaning. Everything in the universe are the signs. Everything in the universe points to Allah, take you to Allah. So in that case, if you can see this dimension, then you can actually arrive to the Creator. So that is all the, basically the things that Nursi thinks is missing. The reason that we are disconnected from the Creator is because we cannot read the signs anymore. Because we cannot read the ayah that in the universe pointing to Allah. As a result, that we are crashing, we are actually running into the problem. Here's the analogical one we use for that. Now we say, things about the traffic light. So what would be the ismi dimension of the traffic light?
Red.
Or I would say, anything that you use to describe the traffic sign itself. You can say it's made of metal, its size is, let's say, 2 meters. It has 3 different, let's say, glasses, or, you can talk about, it says a circle, so you can talk about the shape. And you can say, it cost you this much to make it. So it depends on what's your expertise. As an economist, you can look at, you can focus on the cost side and the price, let's say. As an engineer, you can look another way, and an artist, you can look at an art side. But all of those description about what the traffic light is ismi dimension. But what is the harfi dimension of traffic light?
It makes the traffic flow.
What is the harfi dimension? Yes.
The ultimate point of having the traffic light in the first place is to make sure people follow certain rules.
Which means the traffic light has a meaning. When it is red, you have to stop. When it's green, you can go. That is the meaning, and that's the purpose of having traffic light. So in that case, the meaning, which is not physical, but is actually more important than the physical, which is the purpose of having this object, is the harfi dimension. So what Nursi says, he says that we live in a time that we spend all of our effort to just describe the ismi dimension and not talk, ignore, and even deny the harfi dimension. Now imagine this. Imagine we're telling you in a school that you're supposed to provide every kind of information about the traffic light, but you are absolutely forbidden to talk about its meaning. Well, what is the meaning of this education about traffic light? It's completely useless. Because the whole purpose behind traffic light is to really teach the kids its meaning. When they go out, they can take the right action that will not crash. The entire human or secular education is in a way focused on the ismi dimension and not allowing us to bring anything from the harfi dimension. They say you're forbidden, that's not allowed, it's not science. That's what I will say. Don't talk about it. So that is what Nursi sees a problem. So in this case, replace the traffic light with a tree. So the tree is a sign, and sign is an ayah. And again, the Quran refers to an ayah, one refers to the bird, one refers to the star, the sun. So in this case, ayah means sign. And sign, there's a whole symbiote study this one, the science of studying the sign. It says that sign has two aspects. Sign is a signifier and signified. So the signifier is in a way is the ismi dimension. That's the physical side. Signified is the harfi dimension, is the meaning at that. Now, what would you see when you look at a tree? Is there any meaning of a tree? How would you look at the tree as a sign? Does the tree tell you anything? Point to anything? Yes? Can anyone read the sign of the tree? Yes?
What is the magnificence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how it starts as a seed and it grows, like every single detail of the tree itself shows the how Allah is capable of doing anything or making anything.
See? So in this case, the tree is actually talking to you and saying, your creator is my creator, and our creator is all-knowing, is all-powerful, who cares about you, who knows your need, who is compassionate, and who provides all these things to you through me. It's not from me. So in that case, once you look at the tree through the harfi perspective, you basically see a form of connection and communication with the Creator. So you see in a way that the tree speaks to you, is actually, tells you about the Creator. Other example, you are looking at the mirror, seeing the images. What is the ismi dimension? What is the harfi dimension of the mirror? When you look at it, so again, when you look at that, what is the ismi, what is the harfi for the mirror? The mirror has two dimensions. This is very, because you know, everything has two dimensions, and everyone has two perspectives to look at the things. So you can, there are ismi dimension, harfi dimension. That's the reality of everything. Everything reveals itself, but has meaning beyond itself. But for you, there are two ways to look at some things. You can look at through ismi perspective, Nursi will call nazar bil mana ismi, that you look at through the mana ismi nazar, or you look at through the harfi perspective, that nazar bil mana harfi. So in this case, what is the ismi and harfi dimension of the mirror?
So the harfi would be the, like, what the mirror is made of. It is a reflective surface.
Ismi will be what the physical, yeah, like what is made of glass and it has this shape. That's ismi. And harfi?
It gives the reflection of whatever is in front of it.
So in other words, it's basically, harfi means that the mirror has the meaning of showing the reflection is made to reflect something, and anything is reflected that is not from mirror. That's what's, because it is the other dimension of that. Now, when you look at the mirror, now in your perspective, if you look at through harfi perspective, what are you supposed to see? If you look at the harfi perspective, you're supposed to see the reflection. But if you look at through the ismi perspective, what are you going to see? You're going to see the glass. So imagine you're looking at the mirror, only seeing the glass, and you say, no, mirror is great, you're forbidden to see the reflection, just see the glass. That's what Nursi says, that when you are mistaken, when we look at the creation. So the mistake here is to limit our perspective to the ismi perspective and looking only to the physical dimension, not looking at the meaning of that. Is the AC open? I think spirits. Okay. So in this case, basically, as you look at the mirror, that you're supposed to understand that the mirror is not the source of what is reflected in. The mirror is just the means through which that something reflects. In that case, that we are supposed to look at the entire creation as a mirror. In that case, whatever quality, properties that we see within the creation, we should see this as a reflection of the divine names, as not the properties of that object as if it's from the objects. So that's how we basically, we suppose when we look at through the harfi perspective, we're going to connect everything to the creator. So in this regard, that essentially, Nursi described the problem is first with niyyah, that the intention is problem, that if your niyyah is a dunya, niyyah is just to fulfilling your desires in this world, with this world, which is what Charles Taylor defined as a third type of secularization, that in this case, your aim is dunya, then your nazar is going to only take you to the ismi dimension. So you only look at the material side and you will dismiss the meaning side of creation. So in this case, Nursi says the problem is the niyyah and the problem is the nazar with ismi perspective. The solution, he says, first correct your niyyah, then know what is your aim in life. So convert your niyyah to be only and only rida ilahi, the pleasure of God. In this case, ikhlas should be the niyyah, and your nazar should be the harfi perspective, which means that do not focus on the mirror. focus on the reflection in the mirror. Do not focus on the objects that you like. Focus on what is reflected in them and link them to the Creator. Link them to the divine names. Then you will see, in this case, wherever you go and whatever you see, that you see God is manifesting within them. So An-Nursi, made a very lengthy discussion and comparison. In a way, if we really use analogy again, he says that essentially you can have two different lenses or two different worldview, as Dr. Al-Passon was explaining yesterday. The worldview in this regard is basically the lenses through which you see the world. And again, that as Dr. Al-Passon explained it, that you can't live without the worldview. So, but in the modern time, the default worldview is a secular worldview. So in that case, essentially, Nursi did a lot of comparison between how you view the world with different lenses. And in this regard, in Nursi's idea, when your life is not good, the problem is with your lenses. When you're not seeing everything's to be good, to be khair, to be for good reason, he says that because your lens is wrong one. So, but when we see that most people, when they kind of have a bad life, so-called, then they try to see what they can change some other factor. Like, I'm going to change my car, I'm going to change my house, I'm going to change my job, then I'm going to be happy in a way. But here he's saying, no, what you really need to change is your lens. If you change your lens, that you can actually see goodness in everything. The reason is because it says that basically, if Allah is all good, khayr mutlaq, that whatever He does has to be for good reason. Because all good God will only do something if it is good. So in that case, it says that the evil is only within your choice. There is absolutely no evil in His choice. So in this regard, that once you look through this lens and link to Allah and understand that He's all good, then you will see the good side of everything. Now, again, basically, the problem, as we mentioned, when you teach the traffic light and without teaching the meaning, you cause an accident. But when you teach about the universe, without teaching the meaning of everything in the universe, that basically you, in this case, making the people in their life journey to crash. So the reason that basically if we are making a bad choices and we're not having a good life, in a way that because we don't really see the signs, or we don't really read the signs, and therefore we are making mistakes in life. So in that case, so as we do for a traffic, we need to do for the life as well, teaching the meaning of that. So again, essentially, if we summarize the ismi and harfi, so the problem in this regard is to look at the things through the ismi perspective, and first of all is to have intention or niyyah be secular. Secular means that it's all about the dunya. That your whole aim, even Nursi used this phrase, it says that they will do the good deeds that because they want their business to go better. Like, oh, you go and do umrah, and because then I'll make dua and my worldly job gonna be better. Nursi says like that is corrupted intention. You're not supposed to go to umrah for your business. You're supposed to go umrah for the akhirah. So you can make the dunya as your goal and then go and do the umrah or do hajj. So in this case, that means your intention is dunya. That's a secular. That means you are actually, in a way, aiming to be happy in this world rather than aiming to gain, Jannah or have the Raza Ilahi. Then again, the problem is to paying attention to the ismi dimension. So intention, attention, perception. So in this case, So intention is secular in ismi, attention is toward the ismi dimension only, and perception obviously is just a ismi dimension, just the physical dimension. And therefore, when you become materialistic, when you value the matter only, that because you don't really see the meaning in the things. And the solution, he says, that the intention has to be changed. That's basically tawheed or ikhlas. And the attention should be toward the harfi dimension, which is the meaning of creation. And the perception should be both. You can see the physical, you can see the mirror, and give value to the mirror only in terms of being the reflection, or the means for the reflection. So again, basically, that's intention is going to affect our perception. So if we apply to the knowledge, intention is to really have a desire to know. Like, as Aristotle says that human by fitra desire to know, wants to know. So it's your fitra. But it depends on really what you want to know. So first you have to start with intention. Let's say you came here and your intention, what's your intention or my intention? Arago is Istanbul's great place and I'm going to have vacation in between that I can just join some session, see? Or what's your intention or my intention is really, I think that is a great model. I want to know about that. I want to really do something with that. So again, you can see, you can have various level or various type of intention. But even to gain the knowledge and understanding, you have to start with intention. And attention, and in this regard, it's basically, it's somehow directed by the intention. And that's like in phenomenology, they have a lot of discussion on that. In psychology, even have that. There are a lot of experiments that shows that you only see what you want to see actually, which means that you're very selective and what you want to see affects your perception and therefore your attention goes based on that one. And in this case, when you try to see something, you have to use certain perspectives, certain glasses. So are you using ismi perspective or harfi perspective? What is your glasses? How are you looking at the things? So that's nazar is very, very important in this regard. Then after nazar, then now if you have the right perspective, then you're going to have the right perception of that. So again, the problem, as we described before, is to separate creation from creator. And the solution is to connect and to see everything's in connection with God, in the name of God. Now, one example we can link and try to see that. So we use it as it's basically a simple analogy. So essentially, let's say if someone has no knowledge of the light and the light source, so in that case, you try to, let's say, explain, the light comes from the light switch. Why? Because you can turn on the light switch and you got the light. You turn off the light switch, the light is gone. So there is, in a way, a causation, that because the light switch is causing the light in the bulb. Now, this seems to be true, but when you explore further, you understand that no, the light cannot come from the bulb or the light switch. So you will understand that there must be something that actually has the necessary properties to give you to give the light. So in this case, to say that light comes from light switch, it's actually misleading because you're teaching as if it's a causation. But to deny that light switch has nothing to do with the light, it's actually denying the association there. So in this regard, our argument here, we say the secular science is teaching about the universe, association as a causation, as if the associated established mechanism is the source of what you get it there. So they will say light switch or the wire or the bulb or all together, they bring the light. In the harfi perspective, then when you deeply look at that, you say, no, this is just what appears to you. This is the apparent causes, but they cannot be the source, because you study, you see they are not qualified to be the source. So then you see the power station as the source. So in that case, basically it means that when you look at some things, that you see the divine power behind them, because you see they are not, they do not have the necessary quality to give what they seems to give it to you. So in this case, our argument here, secular science confused association with causation. And remember that some concepts, like when we teach statistics particularly, you know, correlation, causation, we say they are not the same things. And one thing that, like, we always, with empirical study, we warn, you know, say, don't never confuse correlation with causation. So in this regard, that's what we see in the universe is actually not the causation, it's just correlation or association. The reason is not causation because as you study them carefully, you find out that they cannot be the source. They point to something else to be the source. So the universe will take you to the creator as the source if you carefully study them. But if you don't carefully look at that, you might get confused when you see the regular association and you can describe this as a causation. The problem with Muslims, mostly in modern times, we end up sometimes negate the importance of association as well. But that's also wrong. Why? Because if there is such an established system, then for you to get the light, you have to use the light switch. So we are not saying don't teach about the light switch, don't use the light switch. We're saying that do not think that the light comes from the light switch. And then some, you know, when we say, oh, this all come from Allah, some Muslims say, okay, that means I don't have to really use the light switch. I don't have to really study and work hard. And after all, Allah is going to create a result. So let's make dua that Allah is going to help Gaza. So, and basically that means if we do not really see the sunnatullah, which means there's an established system through which that Allah created, and Allah says, I will not change my sunnatullah, okay, except the mu'jiza, okay? In that case, we're not saying we should deny that. We say we should actually recognize, we should obey the system, but we should not see this as the source, because it can't be the source. The source is from Allah. Same thing like a TV and remote control, and there is association between them. And you can test it and see when you press on certain button, you can see, let's say, documentary on a TV. But that doesn't mean the remote control makes the documentary. Because documentary is very complicated things. It requires a consciousness and knowledge. And remote control doesn't have such mind to produce the documentary. So in this case, you can easily reject that the remote control is the source and producer for the documentary. So in that case, like what we see on the TV, whatever we see in the universe manifested in the creation, whether there's a tree, whether there's a bee, whether there's the sun or the stars, or the water cycle, or the digestive system, in everything we're supposed to see that is the acts of Allah, the creation of Allah. And that's exactly what we try to do in 5D. So we try to essentially link, take beyond the Ismi dimension and go to the Harfi dimension in a way, bring the Malakut and go beyond the four-dimensional materialistic reality and then connect everything to the Creator and then see everything is in a way as a form of communication. Now in the Quran, there are a lot of ayah that you can actually see as basically ayah telling us to reflect in the universe in Harfi perspective. Like this ayah says, أَفَلَا يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَى الْإِبْلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ وَإِلَى السَّمَاءِ كَيْفَ رُفِعَتْ وَإِلَى الْجِبَالِ كَيْفَ نُصِبَتْ وَإِلَى الْأَرْضِ كَيْفَ سُطِحَتْ. You see here, أَفَلَا يَنْظُرُونَ. So, don't you look at, which means, don't you look and reflect what's going on. What إِلَى الْإِبْلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ. So, you look at the camels, but كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ means how it's being created. So, you see the كَيْفَ is repeated in every part. كَيْفَ رُفِعَتْ كَيْفَ نُصِبَتْ كَيْفَ سُطِحَتْ. So, the كَيْفَ means you need to look how it's happened. And that's how the science helps us. Because the science actually gives us information of how something's happening or what is there, that you go and observe that. But again, we're supposed to, when we look at that, we're not supposed to just look in terms of the material side and explain through material cause and effect. We're supposed to reflect that this can only happen with the power, knowledge, and will of Allah. And again, the Quran is full of those. I'm referring that like إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ وَفُلْكِ الَّتِي تَجْرِي فِي الْبَحْرِ بِمَا يَنْفَعُ النَّاسَ. You see that, I can read it there well. وَمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مِنْ مَاءٍ فَأَحْيَا بِهِ الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا وَبَثَّ فِيهَا مِنْ كُلِّ دَابَةٍ وتسريف الرياح وسحاب المسخر بين السماء والأرض لآيات لقوم يعقلون. So you see here, basically, it mentioned all of them in في خلق. So, إن في خلق السماوات والأرض. So basically, خلق السماوات والأرض include everything, which means in the creation of everything. In the day or night, in the ship when they speed through the sea. But normally, yeah, we can look at the day and night, the sun maybe. But here even talks about the ship. We think, oh, the ship is a man-made thing, and actually we use and no, it's just that's also ayah. Why? Because how this can happen? What are the property of the waters that lets your ship to sail through the sea? So, is it like you give them? Is it really you making them? So in that case, basically you see, but it says only this become ayah, لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. It's interesting, it shows qawm here, it used qawm here, because I think it means you cannot perhaps understand all yourself. You have to have a collective reflection. Means you have to help yourself, then you get people of different expertise, so you ask them. So that's how you help each other as a, let's say, community of thinker or thinking people. That's how you can find that. Again, the Quran particularly talk about an ayah in anfus and afaq, which means that there is a ayah within you and outside you, and both of them actually point to Allah. Now, let's just finish this part, and I'm going to go through the story. Look at this flower here. How would you read in Harfi and Ismi perspective? Can someone read this flower in Harfi and Ismi perspective? And then we're going to move to another allegory, and we reflect on that one. So, but this is just a concluding, let's say, a question to see whether we get the Harfi and Ismi very well. Yes. Can someone read the flower in Harfi and Ismi perspective? Yes.
So the Ismi would be...
You can use the mic.
So the Ismi would be the species of the flower, tulip, and the species name, what colour it is, what height or whatever it is in the field, with surrounded by some of the other colours, or what you basically can just see. If it's a fragrant flower, and just that.
And then, how about if you go into the biology of flower? Will that still be Ismi?
Biology,
like he talks about the cells. You talk about the structure of the flowers.
That's all Ismi.
Does it still Ismi?
Yes.
Okay. And what would be the Harfi?
The Harfi then is looking beyond all of that, but think I need more help with that one. Or what Allah has given us, what we're supposed to see from it, that they come up in spring, they go, the resurrection, the life, the signs behind it. That's how I'm seeing it.
Okay.
I'm not 100% confident.
Okay. So again, we try to see which kind of information about the flowers will be based on Ismi perspective, and which kind of information about the flower will be based on Harfi perspective. Yes, anyone's? Yes.
Harfi can be pointing towards the al-Musawwir, the artist who made those flowers.
Okay, so Harfi, you say, will linking to the divine names, like is an artist. So that's one thing you can read. Yes.
I feel that, yes, there's al-Musawwir elements or the names of Allah when we see this picture, but there is also al-Jamil, where Allah beautified us. The flowers for us to see His attribute. But above and beyond that, I also see that when Allah is attributing al-Jamil to the flowers, we see that there's many colors to it, but it all is considered as beautiful. And the source is still one, which is from water, as Allah sent out the Quran to us as a divine guidance, one divine guidance. But Allah, makes us in different forms, different expertise, different creation. But every human creation is Jamil. Every creation is beautiful. So that's the Harfi perspective that I see. Maybe.
So in other words, Harfi perspective is the meaning, right, that you derive from the flowers. So in this case, do you think that's meaning is going to, could that be, is it like a specific meaning that everyone will get it, or could that be in a way different for different individual? So, in a way, is there universality in the subjectivity, or is it purely subjective? Yes,
Sorry, would you have?
Yeah, we have some people back. Yes.
Probably to do with different context, time, variation, applying to different people.
So how would you read again the Harfi perspective? What is your reading of that?
I would have said that Allah reading named Jameel, so that's how I saw it, and how He, as Al-Khaliq, has created, such beautiful flowers, and how we should view ourselves and our life and be grateful with the things we have.
Okay. So again, you look in terms of the outlook and the beauty and read that way. Yes?
So I don't know if I'm understanding this right, but when I look at the Harfi perspective, I'm thinking of it kind of to be echoes of the good word. And
What echo what?
echoes of the good word.
Okay.
And there can be a certain level of subjectivity, but there's, I wouldn't say subjectivity, but how we kind of bring out these perspectives, they're contextualized, so what one may derive from the meanings of that flower may be different from someone else, but they're unified in perspective. So for example, when I'm looking at the tulip, I'm thinking about not necessarily the divine names immediately, although that is valid as well, but I'm thinking about the hadith about perfume, and that perfume is like sadaqah. So it's for me, when I think of the Harfi perspective, I'm thinking about the ethical, bringing the ethicality back into education as opposed to just the technical. And the ethics of what we're trying to experience is rooted within the Tawheed.
Okay. Sister Sophia?
Would it be accurate to look at this as, what's seen and what is the unseen?
Exactly. What's seen, unseen means that what is physical, visible to everyone. Correct. But the non-physical is the meaning inscribed into that, but you will see depending on your own lenses, because let's say, if you look through the lens of ethics, you see something else. If you look through the lens of physics, you're going to see something else. The lens of biology will show you something else. So it depends on how you look at what is in your mind about the flower. So you will see that side of the meaning.
And that would all be under that category of the unseen.
Exactly, because the unseen, in a way, it's basically...
Because the seen, everyone could, if we're talking about what's seen, what's visible to the naked eye, we may all see the same thing. If long our eyes are working the way it should, we see the color red, the color yellow, etc. If we all looked with the same microscope, we would see the same makeup of the item, the object, right? The types of cells and so on. But the unseen would be different for each of us because of our perspectives, the lenses that we're using.
Yeah.
And that's when we would look at even what we would consider the purpose of the flowers that look at, what purpose did Allah have? What did He have in mind when He created this particular flower? Is it, for the insects, for the bees to pollinate, for us to enjoy beauty, to enjoy the scent?
See, that's, I think your questions, look at this book, Sister Sophia. So what do you see as the title of the book? Beyond Matter, right? So if I tell you, what does beyond matter mean? Can you show it to me on that one? Or is this the meaning that inscribed in a particular shape? But does the meaning exist physically here? No. Where did the meaning come from? The meaning is here inscripted. Only a conscious being who knows the inscription, how to read that, they get the meaning. But if you tell me, where is the meaning? How much is weight? Meaning is different dimension of this. The shape is the way of communicating the meaning. The author of this book has a certain meaning or message in the mind, and the author inscribes certain sign to convey the meaning to you. And this book by itself, without you, has absolutely no meaning. If the book stay here, it means nothing. It only means what it means in the eyes of beholder. So when you look at that, you don't see the shape. What you see a meaning communicated to you. So in that case, basically, the meaning is a dimension of every creation. So the meaning in this case is not subjective. It objectively exists with everything. But every subject will get their share based on their understanding or their lenses. So if you look through the lens of physics, you will see something else. If you look through the lens of biology, you see something else. So that's the subjectivity, because you look from that perspective. But the meaning does exist within everything. And actually, one of the guy I read it, I was amazed with his life and efforts, Heidegger, German thinker. The guy spent his entire life to telling that the object has a meaning. They are not just an object. Literally, actually, you could ask Dr. Al-Pastan, he did his PhD on Heidegger. My reading of Heidegger, that this guy spent his whole life to tell us that being has a meaning. Which means he said the being is like a book. Don't treat this as a paper. Why everyone treat this as a paper, as a toy? He's just crying, this is a book, this is a book. And everything is like this is a book. But unfortunately, the guy did not know how to read any single letters or any single book in the universe, because he didn't have something like Quran to help him to read that. And that's the point. So the point here is that, but when we look at the Muslims, that we get the ayah, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, it tells us to read, and we know, we are taught how to read, but we don't even look at the universe as a readable object. And therefore, when you look at Muslims, their aim try to accumulate the objects rather than to read the objects. So, and that is the problem. So the issue here is to, when you look at the flower, don't see as an object. You see as a collection of books, that it has a different layer of the meaning. That's the point, yes?
Can I ask if then, is it accurate to say that the Islamic perspective could be possibly the same for everyone who's observing an object. But the Harfi perspective will be different, not just can be, but will be different.
Correct, correct. Yeah, it will be, exactly, exactly. Based on their own level of understanding and specialization. Yes, Sister Sama?
It would be same because there are different ways to understand, for example, love. For a biologist, it is something different.
But at least for biologists, in terms of Ismi dimension, Ismi perspective is the same reality that should conclude on the same things in terms of the physical reality. That's what she said. Yes.
I just wanted to also mention, very, very interesting. So this reminds me of the first year of PhD. We were doing some of the courses about intersectionality and experiences that people go through that make them who they are. And then we were also talking about, again, also, which is very, very similar, the Ismi and the Harfi, where, you know, a tree is a tree. Physically, it's a tree. We can tell it's a tree, but a tree means something different for different people based on their needs, based on you know, what if they work in certain fields. So some people might look at the tree as a source of fruits and food. Economists, for example, might look at the tree and think, oh, how am I going to use the wood? How am I going to cut it? How am I going to make money out of it? So every person has, so subhanAllah, even when they applied or tried to apply the harfi, it became a secular idea of, you know, the human needs, of a human, how the human lens looks at the tree, of how it's going to use the tree, as opposed to, subhanAllah, as you said, as opposed to looking at the creator and looking at the beyond what we need, beyond the materialistic aspects of what we... I
think it's a very, very good point. So you're saying that even when they have a meaning, their meaning is limited to the worldly things. They don't go beyond that. I think that's a very good point. This time right now?
I just would like to add something, because there can be very different perspectives, but when we see there's only one conclusion to be made. There's, even though we look at it from all different perspectives, there's only one who can give these attributes to the tulip, for instance, when we're talking about the tulip. I mean, if you only see the way it develops, it means it has life in it, and there's only one who can give life, and that is Al-Muhyi, so also a name of Allah. But all these different names and the attributes are given to, all the attributes are given by only one, and that is Allah. There's nobody else who can give it. So even though we look at it from different perspectives, yeah, there's only one conclusion.
So there's only one conclusion in terms of seeing the source as a one, but in terms of the name of the source, name of Allah, it can vary. One might see the name of Al-Musawwir, Mujammil, a different. The other might see the name of Khallaq and Khaliq. You know, if they look at in terms of how it's being created. So that's the variable. Otherwise, it's the conclusion is one. One in terms of seeing the source that all point to Allah. But the description of the attributes of Allah can vary based on your understanding. That's a good point. Now, finally, we're going to move to the activity. Yeah, you would.
I think that this one is harmful, like the usage of whatever we see in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says, سَخَّرَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. He subjected to you everything. And the flowers, one of the things. So if we use it, for example, to give it to someone, our mothers, sisters, wives, to strengthen the relation between us, and this would take us to the name of Allah, Al-Wadud. Right?
Very good, yes, exactly. But what I look at it, I say this, I say, if you use the flower as the sign of showing your love and care, what does the flower mean by being created? It means that Allah, by creating flower, showing you He loves and cares about you. So, and therefore, even as you use with such good intention, you try to drive the meaning of flower being flower for you and everyone. So that's, will give you, take you to the Al-Wadud. But we're going to go to the activity. I will leave you with one question. How can you read your life through the Harfi and Ismi perspective? How can you read social event, including the event in Gaza, through the Harfi Ismi perspective? That would be the question in exam. You don't have to answer now.
That's hard.
That's hard. So we want you to think about it really. So just have things and think yourself. But we're going to have an activity now. Half an hour, right, Suzman? Yeah. So we want the group activities very, very important. Everyone goes to their room, and I think we can describe it here first. Everyone individually do, then they go to their room. That will be better. Remember we mentioned last time? So give the activity now. Let's everyone first to do it individually, then they go up and do collectively. Tell us for the... So we're going to give you activity now. We want you to think about personally. Then you meet up with your team and compare your answer with each other. Keep in mind, we're going to have a group presentations at the end. So your team will eventually write a topic through 5D with all dimension, and we present to everyone. Okay, so that is basically all this partial activity is supposed to help you and prepare you for the final day of the presentation as a team. Okay, so what is the assignment?
So we have limited time, as usual. The activity you have to do, look at the topics that are here, select one, and then think of an analogy. Something made by human beings that can be compared to any of these things like habitats, photosynthesis, soil. So you can use Google. You can use Google to search. You can use ChatGPT. What's a good analogy for this? After you've selected your analogy, look at the similarities and differences of your analogy, the man-made thing, with the real thing. Okay, write some points, and the time now is 11:10. So I suggest you take 8 to 10 minutes to do it yourself, and then just go to your, take a group and go where you're supposed to go. Spend another 10-15 minutes there, grab your coffee from there, and then we come back here at 11:45. Okay, so coffee break is included in the activity. Right? Inshallah.
So just pick one, right?
Yeah, pick one. But then what are you going to do in your groups?
Yeah.
No, but they're gonna compare it. They're gonna to see what they have. They discuss together as a group.
Discuss it amongst yourselves.
Do you give them one activity or two activity?
Just one.
One. Okay. Okay. They discuss to see whether it's right or not. That's the debate.
I can ask a question. Just to confirm, we're going to have to, like, each group is going to have to agree on one topic, right? So we have to,
yeah, you can.
Yeah, we have to be together. Like, we have to decide together which topic.
When you just assign a topic to each group,
What Dr. Necati is suggesting is that if you all have your own reflection right now, you get your ideas. When you meet in your group, you can decide which one you're picking on, which one you're selecting. Yeah.
Okay.
That way, you can present your arguments of why you selected this one, why this analogy fits.
But I think she was saying that topic.
I know.
Will they have but because they might choose different topic.
I know.
Okay. Okay.
In that case, I think it's better for.
I hope you had a good time working on the analogy. For those who are asking about presentations, you will present later towards the end of the program. Now you are slowly building your 5D topic. And so on the way to build that topic, there are certain theoretical parts that we need to be aware of. And then this presentation will be talking about learning the language of God to read the book of the universe. But before doing that, as you would expect, we would have a relatively simple brain exercise. So from this slide, we see the sun. And we see 3 different objects. The first one being the flower. The second is meant to resemble a droplet reflecting the moon. And then the third one, we have a shiny object reflecting the sun. The question is, can we use these 3 objects to understand the sun? Can we use all of them? Can we use one of them? None of them? So I would like to hear your thoughts on this, please. So can we understand and know the sun from these 3 objects? Anyone wants to take?
Yes,
Yeah?
yes, we can.
We can use all four of these pictures to understand the sun. One, the first picture is an actual picture of the sun. It's a zoomed-in picture of the sun. The first one.
Yes, excluding the picture of the sun. How can we use the three ones at the bottom?
So the first picture of the flowers, sunlight is essential, coming from the sun.
Yes.
The second picture is the moon, a reflection of the sun at night.
Yes.
And the third is also a droplet picture of the sun. So all three actually point at the sun.
Good, good. So you're saying we can use these three objects to know and understand the sun. Is that right?
Yes.
Any other answer? We have one here.
Can you repeat this question? Sorry.
From these objects, the flower, the droplet, reflecting the moon, and the shiny object, any shiny object, be it the sea or something glassy, reflecting the sun, can we use all of them to know that there is a sun without seeing the sun? Can we use all of them to know that there is a sun and to understand it?
We wouldn't be able to see any of those without the sun.
And why is that?
Only because we see because of light. And if there was no sun, we wouldn't be able to see.
That's a good answer as well. Anyone else?
I think with the flower would relate to day.
Okay.
The sun is facing that part of the world. But in the picture that it's facing the other side, so it's night. And then the last one would be the sun reflecting.
How about the beauty of the flower? Can you relate it to the sun or what we're trying to say? What is the relation between the beauty of the flower and knowing the existence of the sun?
I wouldn't relate link the sun to the beauty of the flower.
You wouldn't link the... Okay.
I wouldn't give the sun the credit for the beauty of the flower.
All right. Any other insight? Anyone else? Sister Zara?
I was just thinking, when the earth is spinning.
When the earth is spinning, yes?
The flowers during the daytime.
The flower during the daytime?
At night when the sun sets over. It's the earth that's spinning around the axis.
Sister Samah, followed by Sister Asma.
You can go beyond
Okay, yes.
So, actually, I didn't say after the
Try a long click on the microphone. It should work now, I see it.
Yeah? You hear me? Okay, alhamdulillah. I was just saying after the lecture of Ustaz Necati, I would like to make a division between the ismi harfi and ma'na harfi and ma'na ismi, because we can see ma'na ismi from the sun and ma'na harfi is from Allah. If we compare this, so we need the sun. I mean, this is the law of Allah. So His creation made it possible for us to see the sun, to see the flower and the other pictures because of the sun. But it is only the scientific science, so it's not the meaning. So only the ismi and not the harfi part.
So we can see the ismi perspective. Can we have a harfi perspective by looking at these flowers or any of the other objects?
Yes, of course. Yeah,
yes.
But that is related to Allah. And this is, you can relate the ismi things to, being a part of creation, but you need the sun to see the flower and the other.
Yes, in this example, in this allegory, the sun is the source, just for this allegory. So, thank you for linking the ismi and hafi perspective. Sister Samah?
Yes. Actually, if I look at each one of the pictures on the bottom, I can look at the different jobs the sun does, subhanAllah, and reflect on each. I mean, the first one, the flower would be sunlight and the benefits of the sunlight and how it, if it wasn't for Allah sending light to the flowers and then the perfect environment, the flowers wouldn't come up, the plant itself wouldn't come up. And then again, the moon at night. How do we see at night? It's a reflection of the sun. So the sun's purpose also to give light in the daytime, but also through the moon and at nighttime. And then again, when I look at the sea and I look at the droplets and I look at, subhanAllah, how the sun is used to, how subhanAllah created the sun so that it can, so that we can have rain and we have like the whole cycle. So there are different roles that the sun play and different functions that the sun can play through the different analogies. So there's so many that we can think of.
Excellent. I think, okay, two more. Last two, yes? We can.
I think, can you hear me?
Yeah. The sister has a mic, so how about?
I think it's easy to see the connection when you know there's a sun. But let's assume a world where someone doesn't know what the sun is, never heard of the sun, and they live in darkness, right? They see the moon, they're like, the moon has light, just it has its own light. That's what people used to think anyway. And then I come and tell them, oh, it reflects from the sun. This idea called the sun, that doesn't make sense to someone because they've never seen sun. The same thing with a flower. You're saying that it needs light of some kind. It doesn't emit any light. Why would it need light? The same with reflection. It could just come from whatever entity it is. So it's easier to make these connections because we were educated and we know this. But you don't make these things based on other like observations. You see the sun, and then you can connect them to like how we see reality.
Yes.
But those objects don't inherently show the sun by themselves.
Yes. So I think you got the point of this allegory is that the sun is the source, and these are the means to reflect that there is a sun, but we don't see it as the brother just mentioned. One more input from the sister at the back. Okay, so now that we've seen this, there is a source, and there are three objects reflecting the source. We did not see the sun. Can we use the same allegory to understand that there is a creator? Or can we use such allegory to help us assess the understanding of our understanding of the existence of a creator, assuming the creator is hidden, just like the sun in this example? Can we use it, and how can we use it? How is it similar or not? Yes, please, the mic to the sister at the back.
With all respect, I think analogy puts us into the shots for there's an emphasis on empirical science here. Allah is not hidden. Simply because we cannot see Him, that does not mean that He's hidden. Rather, how is it that we can understand that there is a creator? We use our aql. And yes, to use our aql, we do need our five senses to a certain degree. However, aql is based on more than just the five senses. And as mentioned in the guidebook, there is the level of intuitive reasoning. Through intuitive reasoning and through also the study of regular association, so the patterns that we see in Allah's universe, we do appreciate that yes, there are connections, between the sun, the growth of the flower, and so on and so forth. However, what is common here is that all of these aspects of creation need someone in order to be the way that they are. So the essential element of Tawheed is the neediness of everything and everyone in creation upon Allah, who is independent, transcendent. And yes, the Creator who has ultimate knowledge, power, will. However, I think the first step to really establish here is the neediness of creation upon the Creator who has no need for us or for anything else. And so it's important to, I think, and as in the Quran, when we're asked to look at, for example, the mountains and consider how they are, or look at the sama, right? We're to consider how all of these aspects of creation appear, how they manifest in this world, but also, again, how they depend upon the Creator to be in the way that they are. Think of the ships in the sea, right? We don't control the seas, nor do we even control the ships. So the sun, so to draw this all back to Allah, if we focus on how all of these objects of creation are contingent or dependent upon the creator, then we can perhaps easily establish that they need a necessary being. Someone needs to be there in order to exist, and that someone has to be someone who needs no one. Because if that being needed someone else, then you would keep going. At some point, the chain would stop. Because if there was no ultimate or necessary being, then we would not see really any order or any sense of order in this world. And that also is confirmed through the Quran.
Thank you very much, sister. Exactly, yes. So this analogy is used by Said Nursi to deliver certain messages. So with the flower, he would explain that the flower is, in particular, it reflects the sunlight in a way that with sun and photosynthesis and how it grows and all of that, it comes into a beautiful flower. So when you look at the flower, number one is you might get distracted by the, or not you, the general, they might get distracted by the beauty of the flower, and then they would think that the source of beauty is coming from the flower, forgetting the role of the sun, forgetting the role of the creator. And then the droplet, or the droplet reflecting the moon, yes, it receives moonlight through reflecting sunlight as well. And then the shiny object, a glassy object, or even the water, it's a direct reflection of the sunlight. So the flower is partial, and the moon, or the droplet reflecting the moon, is also partial, is a shadow. But only the glass, the shiny object, has the direct reflection. The remaining of the two, the flower and the moon, the droplet reflecting the moon, does not have the full image. Now, how can we use this to understand the divine? Or how does, what is Nursi trying to say? That flower mirrors the sun, but it is limited by its own colors. It means that, I'm not sure if I have it on this next slide, it means that it resembles those who can know the creator by the intellect. So if you look at the flower, by time, you would understand that there is a creator. And by looking at the droplet, you will see the moon, but struggle to see the sun directly. And he juxtaposed this into the sainthood. Those who follow people, for example, those who follow Nursi without going back to the Quran. And then the third way of knowing the divine is using the shiny object example. It directly mirrors the sun. There's a direct experience, and that resembles prophethood. This is why he had the flower, the moon, and the shiny object example to explain the ways in which we can know the divine. And he's saying that these are not wrong ways of knowing him, but on different levels. There's the partial, there's the shadow, and then there's the direct reflection. So the aim of this is, just as we know for sure that there is a sun, yaqeen that there is a sun, and we're certain about it, the same can be said about a creator. Of course, this is approaching those who object to the existence of a creator. So this would be the core argument. There's iman, belief with yaqeen as well, should be like our belief in the existence of the sun and the properties of it. The same way is applied to understand that there is a creator. Professor Necati, would you like to give us an input on this? The mic.
So basically for this session, it's just that we talked with Aisha that we're gonna, in a way, to make sure everyone's awake. So she will do that, and from time to time, and observe and try to give some input. So I think the discussion, there are two issues here, so we need to clarify. One is, you can use, first of all, this is analogy. So which means analogy, you try to understand analogy, but I think there was like some confusion that with some comments was based on Harfi and Ismi from the query structure. So the analogy was here like, if you get the sun, flower, can you know the sun from a flower? from the reflection of the moon or from the reflection of the sign in the droplets? That's the question. So the question, can you know about the sun? Obviously, all those three objects reflect the sun. But which one reflects the sun in the best way? The third one. The shiny objects only reflect the sun, but the flower, whatever you see in the flower is actually a reflection of the light, of the color of the light. But the flower gets this color and beautify itself, showing itself rather than showing the sun. Therefore, when you look at the flower, you don't really see the sun. It does not remind you the sun. But when you look at the reflection for the droplets showing the moon, you can see the sun, but not as is. You see it directly because the reflection is of the moon, not of the sun. But when you look at the droplets, you can see it directly. That's what the point of this analogy Nursi uses. It's not about how to know Allah. Is how you can become a believer to get to know Allah. It's not the proof of Allah, is your way of knowing Allah. Otherwise, Nursi used the proof of Allah as like the sunlight. He says that everything's like the reflection of the light proves the existence of Allah. So there's different analogy. But here, you can think in this way. Should we raise the student as a flower? Should we raise the student as a way that they become droplets to the moon? Or should we really raise them to the level that when you look at them, they're reflecting directly on the quality, the attribute, the akhlaq of Allah in a way that you can see in their character? In that case, the first one is like, if you have a type of students, they gain everything, is all me, look at me and who I am. Then in this case, they become like flower. They actually show off their own themselves. But you have the students that basically gain the level of understanding and ikhlas and see everything within them is from the sun or from Allah. Then they will not present this as their own. They're going to present it as the reflection of Allah. That's what I think the analogy says. So analogy is essentially telling that, if we give up ego, we become like the droplets toward the sun. That anything's reflected within us will not take any credit, will give everything to Allah. But if we become narcissistic, egotistic, that we will take everything that's reflected in us as if it's ours, we go and brag about it, we go and claim, here's how rich I am, how knowledgeable I am, how beautiful I am, and then we use this to be racist, that we belittle the other. That's the analogy is talking about, that how we see that and how we're supposed to do.
Thank you. Now, to further understand the concept we're trying to explain in this presentation, there are four main components. The first one is learning the language of God. The second would be self-confidence versus God confidence, and we'll see what that means. The third would be knowing God through self-knowledge. And finally, certainty through experiential knowledge. Now, to cover the first part...
Sorry, what's the name of the book?
I want you to read.
Yeah, learning the language of God.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So what is God's language? Is it like there's a certain language? Like we have different languages, we speak languages here, Arabic, English, Turkish, and other languages? Or is there something else? Scientists, authors have been trying to explain the language of God through different scientific achievements represented in their books. Some would use biology in books, some would use biology, the DNA, the RNA, they would say that that speaks of God. Others would use another experiments to explain the language of God. But how are we going to do this? And we ask this question, what is the alphabet of the language of the universe? And to be very honest, when I first came across this, I did not get it from the first, second, third time. I had to listen to it multiple times to understand what this could mean. And here's a hint. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So what does that mean? In your place, I wouldn't understand what this is leading to or what this means. So the language of the universe, according to Nersian perspective, is the alphabet we need to learn is the simplest. It's the I. The I meaning the self. So in order to know God, you need to know yourself first. The human self is the key in order to know the Creator. It is the key to the divine names. And by knowing the divine names, you understand Allah and His creation. But how can we know the I? How can we know oneself to achieve the bigger purpose of the talk? This is what we will find out in this second component. To find or to know who we are, what is the I, what is the self, why do we need to know ourselves in order to know Allah, and why is this the case? There's a saying, I think, Dr. Necati, when I looked it up, it appeared as a song. Learning is knowing yourself. If you don't know yourself, then what is the point of learning? To add on that, do you think this is correct? If I am helpless, I am the help. And if you are the help, if I am the help, I am helpless. What do you think of this? If you think it's too puzzling, just say it's too puzzling. Yes? Puzzling, confusing. How about Dr. Necati? What do you think? Is it puzzling you as well?
This is actually, I think it's quite, I came across this one person, one Islamic or Muslim TV channel. There was a program, and they were affected by this self-help group. But essentially, they were giving a message that, like, we as Muslims need to have self-confidence. And they will say that in Turkish, it's like, if you're helpless, you are the help, meaning that trust in yourself, you can do that. So that was the message they were giving them. And obviously, you know, they with all good intentions, because the idea was like, we're going to give a confidence to them, and how they can be more successful.
Can I tell you the meaning of the second one, if I can guess?
Yes.
Like, if you're helping yourself, then it is not because of you. Because Allah who has actually made you do this. That's the meaning of credit to be given to Allah.
Why we say if you are the help, you are helpless?
Like if you're helping yourself in the time of need, then you are actually helpless. You didn't do it yourself. It is the Allah who has given you this force and power to do that thing. How you come out of that helpless situation.
Yes. I would say, if you believe that you are the help, then you are helpless.
Exactly.
The divine power is the
That intonation is important.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to say. So in other words, if you believe you are the help, you don't have any power. How can you help yourself? So the idea is to see Allah as the source of power and actually recognize your helplessness and ask help from Allah. That's the thing. So, but again, you can see with a secular ideology dominating everywhere, and even we have some picture in some Islamic school as well. So the idea of like giving self-confidence, they think that's really a right way to go, and that was the reason we chose that.
Thank you. This is exactly what Professor Necati was saying, that they say in schools, it is important that we help students develop self-confidence by telling them, believe in yourself, and you can do it. And then we have another image here at an Islamic school. Believe in yourself, you will be unstoppable.
Do you remember this picture?
Yeah, from Canada.
From Canada, right?
Yeah, from
Don't blame the school, perhaps. But we had a program in that school, right? So we had a 5G program in that school, and I saw the corner, I immediately took the picture. So it says, believe in yourself, you will be unstoppable.
That's kind of science in many ways.
See?
Private schools, everywhere. Believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself. Correct. And no one can stop you. No one can stop you.
We're trying to encourage young Muslim children to be confident because there can be other systematic things that go against them. So the whole idea probably came from that. Am I right in saying yes?
Yeah, but again, the point here, the point here is that the purpose is to instill confidence, right? But the mistake is they think the confidence comes from your own self. We say as a believer, we should instill confidence, but that should be tawakkul. So tawakkul is a God confidence, it's not self-confidence. You don't believe in yourself, you believe in God. You don't trust yourself, you trust in God. So that in this case, you understand you're powerless, but you rely on the infinite power. So when you rely on infinite power, you gain infinite power through that power, but it's not your power.
But we still want to instill the values of hard work hard and all the rest. It's like tying your camel, right? You work hard and...
But again, that's the understanding of tawakkul.
Yeah.
So tawakkul is not laziness and sitting and saying Allah will do everything for me. So tawakkul is you have to follow the sunnatullah, means that you have to obey the laws of Allah, to do whatever is necessary to do by action as well as by words. But no, the result is from Allah, not from your action. Otherwise, it's not like, oh, Allah is the creator, therefore we don't need to do anything. But Allah says that He creates only if you ask for it by word and action. So you have to do that.
We have to be careful how, I understand what you're saying. We have to take it to that next level. It's not that we are negating the things that are going on in our schools. The fact that we're trying to, I don't know, that's hit your words. We do want to instill self-confidence in our children. In the context of being in the West and in the Muslim minority countries, our children face, when they go out, they have a lot going against them, so they need their confidence being built up. But we need to take that next step and connect everything back to Allah, which is that missing. It's not that this is, no, don't do this. It's do what you're doing, but add that next level.
So I think
that's what's the missing.
If we apply it, they'll have ultimate confidence, I think, when they're proving an iman.
So that's what I think.
That's the missing part. It's not like there's anything wrong inherently with what we're trying to do with everything.
Again, what we try to correct, we say confidence is necessary, it's important. We only say we need to adjust from self-confidence to God-confidence, which means that rather than relying on yourself gaining confidence, rely on infinite power, not your personal power, to gain confidence.
We may need to change our language.
But not only language, the point is that I'm going to do something. Should I believe in my intelligence, my wealth, or should I actually start and say Bismillah to say, you know, this is going to be from Allah. It's not that we really prepare excellent, we do everything, we're going to have an excellent, let's say, program. Is to recognize that the outcome is from Allah. Everything we do is just a form of dua. He is going to create whatever He will create. So then I will understand my position as an advocate. I will only supplicate and let Him to ordain whatever He does for me.
It's like the example of the Namrud. And how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him all the money and all the wealth, and he just made the attribution of that to himself, as if it wasn't for my knowledge, I wouldn't have done it, it wasn't for my strength, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took that away from him, and then he has nothing, and people were amazed by how powerful he was, and then when that went away, they're like, subhanAllah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives and He takes. We can't associate things to us, we should associate things to us.
But again, I think what Sister Sophia was saying, that we are not really against confidence. And actually we need confidence a lot. Particularly as a Muslims, we really feel very less confident than, let's say, non-Muslims. So in that case, we need confidence even more than others as a Muslims. But the only thing we want to correct that confidence should not be based on secular ideology. That confidence should be built based on tawheed. That should come from the Imam. That's the point.
Sister Muna, you were saying that we need to still emphasize on working hard and such concepts. Yes, this would be part of sa'i and with tawakkul. Because without doing that, we'll lose all of that, obviously. Yes. So we see that again in self-help books, Unlimited Power. Then you explore that, and the universe can give you everything that you ask for. Perhaps they mean to use God, but they want to approach a broader audience, so they use the word universe. However, we know that the universe is atoms and matter, and that does not have conscious or anything like that. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now again, back to knowing the self, in order to know yourself, you kind of have to get out of yourself and observe it. What is it? What are you pointing to? What are you an example of? Who are you without all of the titles that you have gained in this life? And so Nursi would say the key would be the human self, the ana. Now you would think you know a tree, but that could be misleading if one didn't know him or herself. So that's why the knowledge of the self comes first, with which you unlock the secrets of the universe. With this knowledge, the knowledge of the self, you can know the reality of a tree, of a bird, of a flower. And once you have gained that knowledge, you can project this onto understanding every object in the universe. But the problem is, this I, it can be locked in this safe box. So how can we unlock that? And this is where he says, for while being apparently open, the doors of the universe are in fact closed, God Almighty has given to man by way of trust of such a key, called the I, that it opens all the doors of the world. But keeping in mind that the I is a complex concept, and also here's bringing in the similarity of its complicity as difficult as a riddle. And so when its true nature and the purpose of its creation and the purpose of the creation of the self, the ana, is known, as it is, as itself is solved, so will be the universe. So in short words, one has to know the self, the ana, in order to understand the universe. And how would that be? And why we need that? First of all, we know that we are almost absolutely paralyzed. We can't do much if Allah didn't will it for us. There is ajz mutlaq as humans, faqr mutlaq as well, and jahl mutlaq. And we're also extremely weak. There's extreme dharf in human beings. So how do we understand this? First of all, you have to have the intention to know all of this. For example, when someone says you are like a baby, although we seem to be grown-ups here, is it a reality of all adults? Let's think of it this way. A baby cries when he needs to be fed, for example. Do we cry when we need to be fed? Do we feed ourselves? We put the food in our mouth, but then what happens after that? What happens when it goes to the digestive system? If you remember Professor Al-Barslan yesterday, he was saying that we are not the one who measures the quantity of amino acids that should go out and function and digest things. We are not the ones responsible for distributing the different nutrients and where to go. So there's ajz mutlaq. We're absolutely doing nothing. We're just putting the food in our mouth with the will of Allah. And then the rest is controlled by Allah. So we have no control whatsoever. And even if we claim that we have the knowledge of how the digestive system works, we still don't know the quantities and measures. So can we see the impotence of human beings here? This is one way to know the self. The same can be applied to walking. Walking requires our brain to be functioning and our muscles as well. So is it like a control center where we tell the brain to do this and that to communicate with the muscles? This person reached this age, they need to walk, they need to speed up. Is it like that at all? No. Again, it's all controlled by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leading us back to the point that we are completely weak, we cannot do anything, leading us to realize how Vienna, the self, is completely weak without Allah. And we see this with prophets as well, and how they describe such examples when we are talking about eating, walking. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was defining his creator when he said, الذي خلقني فهو يهدين والذي هو يطعمني ويسقين وإذا مرضت فهو يشفين. And I think I see there's adab here. He's saying إذا مرضت. In previous ayahs he was saying الذي خلقني الذي هو يطعمني. But here he's saying إذا مرضت, not associating it with Allah. فهو يشفين. He associated the good. وشفاء باسمه الشافي والذي يميتني ثم يحيين. So what are we trying to say here? You want to say something, brother?
No, I'm reflecting on the verse. So
feel free.
Sorry.
It's good to see that you're interacting in a way. So just as Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was defining his creator, and he knew he was weak, then who are we to claim that we have ultimate power with us or in us? It's within us because of Allah, and He's the one who instilled it in us. And now, knowing God through self-knowledge, usually how does it happen? There are several movements. The first one, not chronologically first one, just the way they appear here. First one is rationalism, meaning that everything is the reflection of what you have in the mind. You would use the intellect to infer that this flower could tell you that there is a sun, although knowing that you did not see the sun. And then there is the empirical way. So everything is the representation, what we have there. It's concerned with the senses, unlike the intellect with rationalism, and also observation and experimentation. Then we have phenomenology, which says, the school says that learning is relational, and we learn through the self, the ana. So it can be, in a way, ana-based epistemology, ana-based, self-based, of the I, knowing of knowledge. So how can we know about God? Is it rationalism, empiricism, phenomenology with some tweaks maybe? So as Professor Necati, I remember one of his lectures, he was saying there's the Tawhidi phenomenology that he would like to use to explain how we know Allah through the relational way. So coming to the mana harfi and mana ismi, Sister Asma brought at the beginning of this talk, it's an ontic language, it's a different ontic language, meaning that it has the same letter, but it can be read in two different ways. So for Nursi, the self, the transcendental self, is the key to read the disclosed meaning in life and beings, in the entire universe. And to do that, just like it was mentioned in the previous talk, there has to be intention first, niyyah, because it acts as a prerequisite for reading the meaning. So if there's no niyyah and we're not aware of our extreme weakness, how can we know the Creator? This is the point that's being made here. So in phenomenology, the concept of intentionality is perhaps a good match for Niyyah and Nursi's writing. And because phenomenology is the field of Dr. Necati, I think he would have very helpful insights.
Okay, so let's reflect a little bit on this so far. Is that, remember, the whole point here is try to, in the first lecture, we're talking about looking at the universe with different perspective and seeing the meaning. And says Harfin is all about the meaning. So which means that in the first lecture we try to make the case that the universe is a book. with the meaning. Everything has a meaning. Now the question is, how can we read that? And I mentioned at that time that someone like Heidegger spent all of his life says it's a book, but he didn't know how to read. So in that case, basically, in this, in this session, we're trying to see how we can read the Book of Universe, how we can get the meaning for that. So in that case, basically, this is a language with very simple alphabet. There's only one letter. The letter is I. That's all. That's I is the letter. So if we use this I properly, we can actually read the whole Book of Universe. Which means you can use, I think in English it speaks quite well. So we have an eyes for the body, and we can see the physical reality. But we have the eye of the soul, that is I means ana, where we say, you know, I do this, I have this. This I is basically is the self. So in that case, the I that given to us, that when you see from in the little kids at the very, I guess like around 1 year old, they start to develop this, you know, that this sense start to be given to them. So they will say mine. When they say mine, it's essentially the ana is emerging. So Nursi argues that in that Quran when he says that عدد الأمانة remember that على الأرض والسماوات والأرض. So it's basically we offer the amana to everything, and none of them accept that except human being. And human is Zalum and Jahula, right? I think it's called Zulm and Jahala. It's very interesting. He used Jahala there. You know, why Jahala? Oh, it says the amana is related to knowledge, and when you're doing knowledge that you become in Jahala in one way, okay? So, and also if you don't use it, you become Dhalim, so you misuse it as amana, because that amana, it is not used properly. So actually, Nursi, in the 30th word, got all this idea from that particular ayah. This is a tafsir of this ayah. And Nursi says, perhaps it's one aspect of the amana. He didn't say all the amana. He says, one aspect of amana is ana, given to human beings. And then he goes and explains how ana is a necessary tool given to us with which we will know everything. He uses a phrase like this. He says that while you think when you see something, you understand it, you name it, you say this is tree, this is the sound, this is how it works. But he says that your knowledge of the thing you see is not the knowledge of reality. For you to know the reality, you have to look not through the eyes of body, through the eyes of ana, self. How will you do that? That's the whole question. That's really the whole session. So again, first things we need to emphasize, the I is the letter with which we can read the universe. And the I is generally, when we say as a pronoun, I do this, I have this, that's the I. That's the human self. So in that case, the question I have, how can we use the human self to read the universe? That's the question. So in this case, Lucy says that essentially, through your own experience, when you work and build a house, you say, I make this house. And now you use this experiential knowledge, then you say, as with the knowledge and power and will I make the house, there must be the maker of the house of the planet Earth, who must have knowledge, power, and will. How do you know that? I know from my experience. So that's what he used that. He says, let's say you cook a food, you cook a meal. So in this case, when you cook, you know what it takes to cook. You say, I did this and this and this, and now I have, let's say, delicious meal for you. So Nursi will say, you can use this knowledge of cooking and then look at the plant and see how Allah is cooking the food for you in a real sense. So in this regard, he's saying that every experience that you have as a human is given to you to know Allah. So that's we call intuitive knowledge, or we call experiential knowledge. So in other words, everything we live, everything we do should lead to Allah if we use properly. But there is only one very essential prerequisite for that. And she already mentioned, what is the prerequisite? Does anyone notice that? To do that, you have to, there is one absolute essential prerequisite. If you don't do that, you cannot read it that way. No, before intention. That is something. Intention, yes, the intention has to be there. But there's another prerequisite for you to read the universe. No. What was the prerequisite?
Neo?
No. Yeah, anyone? What was the prerequisite? The prerequisite awareness of what?
Knowing yourself.
What do you mean by knowing yourself? Exactly. So the prerequisites to understand you absolutely are powerless. You absolutely depend on you. Meaning that you need to recognize that what you do is actually not your own work. You need to understand that Allah is working within you, that even when you say, I feed myself, it's not you feeding yourself. It's Allah feeding you like a baby. So in that regard, once you understand your powerlessness, it's not like you have infinite power, you have zero power. So zero power means you are absolutely powerless, called ajz mutlaq. Ajz mutlaq. And then comes faqr mutlaq. Faqr mutlaq means you have absolutely no possession. Means everything that you have is not yours. So in that, those are the prerequisites. Which means that when I walk now, if I actually know I don't have power to walk, or I say, Allah is making me to walk. Now what I will say when I start something, what I'm supposed to say, whenever I start something good, I always supposed to say Bismillah. Well, what does it mean to say Bismillah? Oh, I don't do with my own power. Bismillah means that I do with the power of Allah. It's actually, that's why we say Bismillah. Because Bismillah is not the ritual that the Prophet says, and we're just imitating to get good deed. Bismillah is a reminder to us that basically we do not have a power, we do everything with the power of Allah. And therefore it's necessary for us to say Bismillah, because otherwise we can't do that. So in that case, basically, Nursi says that the prerequisite to understand who we are in terms of being powerless. And the ayah she was mentioning, you can point to that ayah from Ibrahim alayhi salam. Look at this one, it's really interesting. It says, الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِ. He's describing who is his creator. Then it says, وَالَّذِي
يطعمني
وَالَّذِي هُوَ يُطْعِمُني وَيَسْقِينِ. What does it mean? He feeds me, but you see, it's not like a passive, it's something ongoing, right? He does always. He feeds me, he gives me water when I'm thirsty. So in a way, you can see that he basically describing his so-called own acts as the creation of Allah, as an act of Allah. So, and that's really essential. So which means that once I understand that Allah is actually is the doer of my own act, that I cannot feed myself, I cannot talk, I cannot think, I cannot walk. It's Him making all of those for me. Then I will not give anything to other creatures as well. I will say, it's not tree that make fruits. Because even I cannot make anything. How can tree can make a fruit? Oh, it's Allah creating fruit and actually attaching the tree and standing to me through the tree. It's not the honeybees that make honey, because I can't make it. How can honeybee make honey? Or it's Allah creating honey, but actually creating through the honeybees. So it's not honeybee making that, because all the power belongs to Him alone. So that is basically the idea behind reading the self and reading the creation.
Thank you, Dr. Necati. I think it's essential to have such kind of elaborations because, one, we really need to understand this in order to apply the 5D model, to have the theoretical background cover. Second is because you'll probably have a quiz and an assessment. So please do ask. And as I told you, when I first came across this topic, I did not get it from the first time. It took me several times. So continuing with the ana-based epistemology, using these ayahs, reflecting these ayahs, and bear with me with what's happening here. The first ayah, أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. First, مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ وَأَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى. So we notice that أنفسهم came first here, leading us back to the argument that one has to know oneself and then know the creation. And then the second ayah,
there's disconnection problem.
I don't know,
You just don't touch here, maybe because there's. Okay. Oh, this one, I guess.
Should I?
We'll see.
Okay. Let's try. If not, bear with me. We just have about 10 minutes. The second ayah is سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق أولم يكف بربك أنه على كل شيء شهيد. When we reflect on it, we see that this is happening on the micro level and the macro level as well. The smaller scale and the bigger scale. The smaller scale being as if a camera zooming into something, that's knowing the self. And then the bigger scale or the macro level would be what the verse is saying, سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق. So these are several aspects that relate the ana to the creation and to the universe. And to further explain knowing the self, we said rationalism, empiricism, and phenomenology. We have the example of a headache. Let's say you have a headache and you know that you have a headache, but you go to a doctor and then he checks up on you and says that you are absolutely fine. So in this case, who would you believe? The knowledge that you have a headache or what the doctor is saying? So the
phenomena that you're going through.
Exactly. So that's experiential knowledge. You're experiencing it directly, just like the droplet was directly reflecting the sunlight. And so this results in a lived experience, and this is how we know it. There are universal elements to a headache, and this is how we come to know it and be certain of it. However, Kant does not say this. He says that you can only know what appears to you, but what about a headache? It does not appear to you. You experience it, you feel it. The same thing can be said about the self and knowing the universe. And this example has passed before. When Dr. Necati was explaining the rose, you would get it as someone to express a form of love. The same way Allah has created the flower for you to be seen by your eyes, be smelled by your nose, for your liking, all of it as a gift. Allah is trying to communicate to you, saying, expressing to you His love. So again, to put the idea again in your heads about knowing the self as to know the universe, through the telescope, Nurse is saying, through the telescope of his eye, he, man, sees what the universe is and what duties it is performing. When he obtains information about the universe, he sees that his eye confirms it, like the experiential knowledge. This knowledge will remain as light of wisdom for him and will not be transformed into darkness and futility. The example also of Lego maker or Lego was just elaborated by Dr. Necati. You are the one who built the Lego, so you would know that it is I am the one who built it. Likewise, someone else, a creator, has built the universe. The same can be said about planet Earth as compared to our home. I built this house. I know what it takes to build it. The similar case can be done to planet Earth. Same applies to cooking. We just mix food, really. We do not produce food. You know that. We just mix it and prepare meals. Now, have you ever reflected on strawberries and what it takes for strawberries to come to be? And usually here, Dr. Necati shares a story that he took his children out to a field or a garden, and then he would explain to them that from the horse waste, strawberries are made, or that substance is used to later on result in strawberries. Likewise can be done to the example of leaves. And so the final part of this presentation talks about the certainty through experiential knowledge, which we have just seen with the example of a headache. And here we have this last brain exercise. Which of the following is absolutely trustable and reliable? Given that you need to see the options, we'll try to make this work.
I'll hold it.
So which one of these is absolutely trustable and reliable? Eyes, ears, touch, mind, none. None? I see that you have 100 points on this, Dr. Necati. That's okay, they got the question. So which one is trustable? Absolutely trustable. Eyes, ears, touch, mind? None. None. Anyone else has a different answer?
Okay, so anyway, something in problem. Let me ask you 3-4 questions on all the lectures to see really where we got the points, okay? So if you get answered that means we really got it. If not, we need to provide some clarification. So first of all, the subject is to learn the language of God. So what is the language of God in the universe? That is this. What is the language of God? Science, you mean?
No, science.
Oh, science. So the language of God is science. So the God used a universal language that everyone can understand that in this regard. Okay, so in other words, God actually speaks through the sign in the universe that we can all read. But what is the alphabet that we can use to read the signs? So the alphabet is eyes. The eye only. So which eye? This bodily eye? The eye of the self. So in other words, we use the eye of body to see the physical reality. We use the eye of self to see what? To see the signs of Allah. Okay? To actually be certain about Allah. So that's again the eye of the soul. That's ana, is like the eye of body. They can help us to see the signs of Allah. That's how we feel the presence of Allah. But the problem we mentioned, there is a prerequisite. What is the prerequisite? What is the condition to use the eye? To understand the true fitra of eye, the true so-called nature of eye. So what is the true fitra of eye? Is eye real? Does eye exist? When I say I do, does I have, does that eye, does it exist? Is it real or not? My physical eye is real. Is my spiritual eye real or not? Yes or no? The eye is real, but what is not real? The claims of eye is all fictitious. When I say I have power and I hold the book with my power, is it true? No, it's actually. That's the fictitious. I am powerless. I only experience what Allah does through me. That's all. So which means that I cannot lift up the book because I don't have power. But Allah actually makes me to hold the book, to experience that through I, but it's not from me. So in this case, whatever we experience through the I, if we claim the ownership, that actually make us in a way to be Pharaoh, to say, I am this, I have this, I do this. But that's in reality not us doing that, is all the creation of Allah within us. So in this case, if we recognize the source, we're going to praise Allah for that. Yes?
Would it be right to say, like, what Allah is doing through us? I think that Allah allowing us, enabling us, because Allah has given us this strength, as in not like the unlimited strength, but we do. Allah has given us strength and allows us to do. But Allah is not doing things through us. Allah does not need to do things through us, isn't it?
Yeah, again, I know that's the reason you kind of scared to use that. What we're saying that it's the manifestation of the names of Allah, like Al-Alim, Al-Qadir, Al-Hakim, other names that basically enable you to do that. But it's not the given power to you that you use it until you die. Every moment that when you do directly with His manifested power. That's what we mean that. Because when you say, it's my power unlimited, I have it. So in this case that you claim that you have some things.
No, but Allah says, I cannot help you unless you help yourselves. That means we have to do something for Allah's help to come. So that does not mean that like we are not doing anything Allah is doing through us. We have to do something physically for Allah to help us.
Yeah, so that's good. What you have to do physically is your way of asking Allah to do for something. So in other words, Muslim scholars had a lot of discussion on that. They say that basically, Ash'ari schools mainly is on that one. They say the only things that human claim, remember Dr. Al-Fasal mentioning as well, is a choice. So you can choose some things. You can incline, I can incline to walk, but I cannot walk. I don't have power to walk. So when I desire to walk, Allah will create this for me. But every time I desire to walk, for a while, Allah always makes me to walk. Then I start to think, oh, I have a power to walk. So it's me walking. So in that case, basically, again, you can go and look at scholarly work. They say what human can claim is inclination within irada, which means that even they don't say willpower actually.
But I think the better word would be with the permission of Allah.
You can say I'll say with the power of Allah. Because the will of Allah always contains power, remember that? So the will of Allah, that's why you say inshallah. But one thing, remember, we are not supposed to do anything without saying inshallah, right? Remember, Prophet got the warning. But irada for Allah always has the qudra as well. So for Allah, even when I would try to, for the book, to kind of look at the ilm, irada, qudra, I try to put in a sequential way. And someone looked and told me, no, you cannot. For Allah, there is no ilm, irada, qudra is happening in a sequential. They all happen at the same time. It's like they are together. If Allah wills something, it's not like He's going to plan, He's going to things, and they're going to... No. As soon as He wills, also the power is that doing that. So therefore, for Him, it's like irada and qudra is not separated. So when we say inshallah, we're not saying only if Allah allow us, means that if Allah allow and enable us or create for us, we can do that. So I think the best way to say if Allah create for us, if Allah will and create for us, we can do. Otherwise, we cannot do that. That's been. But I think I understand your point in terms of like, you're still scared to say like, because in reality, He is khaliq kulli shay. He is the creator of everything. There is no one and nothing because in Islam, you don't have any second source of power. Even what you call evil, there's no evil and good fighting with a power because Allah alone has the power. So in that case, the only thing Quran says shaitan is given is just whispering to you. It's not really, it doesn't have, no one has any power in this regard, as everything is from Allah in this sense.
So I just like to share the fact that there's a hadith that the Prophet from Abu Hurairah, Prophet said to Abu Musa, Kanzun min kunuzil Jannah. There's a treasure of the treasures in Jannah, which is la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. So the fact that the paradise is already something precious, right? And can you imagine the treasure inside Jannah, which is something more powerful? So la hawla wa la quwwata. La, when there's an Arabic, when there is a la and there's an isim after that with a fatah, it means that none whatsoever. No way, no such thing, no whatsoever. So hawla wa la quwwata is the thing that we can relate to this process of thinking that, and we teach our students, we also can relate to this hadith and the moral part, moral thinking part, and also to get them to feel that the helplessness is the power that Allah gives us.
Right. Okay, 2 more questions, we finished. So again, we said that basically is the eye we're going to use it. Now, how can you use the eye to know Allah? First, the last 2 questions, first one is this. The last one is, how can you be absolutely certain about that knowledge? So the 2 things. So you want to know Allah, how would you use eye to know Allah? Second, how can you be sure about that? This is absolutely certain that get you to Allah. So how would you use eye to know Allah?
Like when you experience something yourself and you see that it's Allah's will, and whatever you experience is because of Him. So when you do it and then you see the results, you get to know.
Yeah, but how, still a little bit more clarification. How would you do that? How would you use the eye, the knowledge of the self to know Allah? Through analogy, isn't it? So remember, that's what we use analogy, through analogy. How? You say, I build a house, I have an experience of how to build a house. Then now I look at the planet Earth and analogously thinks that, oh, there must be the maker of the planet Earth as well. See, that's, how do you know Allah? I don't need to have empirical evidence. I have experiential evidence from the experience of my own self. Because Allah gives everyone a tool to know Himself. So in this case, no matter who you are, whatever you do, if you know how to properly use your experiential knowledge, you can absolutely find Allah and reach to Allah. So you don't have to get like a PhD from MIT to know Allah, because it's not about empirical evidence. It's about experiential evidence. But then how can we know the experiential evidence is more certain than empirical evidence? That science is mainly based on empirical evidence. How can we know that the experiential evidence is more certain than empirical evidence? Is it more, how can you be sure about it? How? No. How, again, the example we give is a headache. So when you have headache, that you directly experience headache, even the whole world tell you that you are fine, you say, I don't care. I know through my own personal consciousness that I now experience headache. So in that, you use this experiential one and reach that. Yes?
I don't know the source or whatever, but when you put something in front of a person and say, what is this? So it looks like honey, but you touch it, it's sticky, it's like that, but until you taste it.
Okay. Yeah, that's one. Yeah, that's the level of yaqeen. So that's like the example they give it because they use it like ilm al-yaqeen, ayn al-yaqeen, haqq al-yaqeen. So ilm al-yaqeen, the example is like you see, let's say, a mountain. Behind the mountain, you see a smoke rising. What would you say? You will reason. You will say there must be fire because there will be no smoke without fire. That is your observation-based reasoning. That's the ilm al-yaqeen. But can you be sure? No. Like you walk to the top of the mountain and you see the flame of the fire. Now, what is that? Oh, you see, that is Ayn al-Yaqeen. So are you more sure now? Yes. You're more certain that it must be fire. But can you be absolutely certain? No, you can't, because maybe they trick you. They use a technology. They actually fake it and give the shape of flare, and you think it's a fire. So, but if you go next to the fire and touch to the fire, what will happen? You will reach to what? You will reach to Haqq al-Yaqeen. So Haqq al-Yaqeen is when you reach absolute certainty. You say, yes, I know how, I actually have experience. Therefore, it's very interesting if you observe for, I don't know whether there are any kids who will learn not to touch a fire without experiencing fire. I don't know, is there any? I think there is no one, despite all parents try to be very, very careful and warning them. They have to try. Why? No, I think it's because they don't trust them, they trust themselves. But once they experience, they will be absolutely sure they will get away from that. So in this regard, we say it's really the experiential knowledge is the certain knowledge that you can accomplish through that. It's not the empirical one, observational one, as the science claim. So in that case, basically, we argue that we can get the kids, have them to have certain experience, and build our argument based on this experiential knowledge, and say, look, you just try. You just try to, let's say, make a picture or drawing of a flower. Didn't you understand it just happened by itself? But then compare with the real flower. Your picture does not smell, doesn't have any function. The real flower have all other quality. And how wouldn't you understand that flower must have someone to make it like your own drawing? So in that case, they can actually affirm what you tell them.
Again, I just want to affirm also, even in research, now empirical research is important, and they've been talking about it for many, many years, and how every research has to have some empirical, some data to build it. But the switch now, moving towards kind of a different type of data analysis and collecting data through phenomenology, for example, which looks at the enrichment of the experience and analyzing the experience with individuals to understand the issue or the problem that we're facing in society, which means that it's as important as the empirical. It's no less than empirical. So even like research-wise, there's a huge move towards storytelling, phenomenology, narrative, inquiry, all those different tools to account for the human experience, to account for that extra meaning that goes beyond what we can measure ourselves.
Very good. Yeah, I think we don't have time. That's the whole area. If you're interested, you can read phenomenology particularly. Husserl was a mathematician. He wanted to be sure, because he wanted to be certain about 2 + 2 = 4. How can you be certain? And eventually he landed in a whole new methodology called phenomenology. So, and that's, I think it has been picking up like for last 2-3 decades. There are a lot of research on that. It's not empirical evidence only. I think with that, we need to really end it now, then, because you can, have a food and prayer. We need to get ready at 2 o'clock, because I guess that will be parking problem when the bus come. We need to really get there right at 2 o'clock to get on bus, inshallah. Okay? Thank you very much.